Welcome to the Josh Dupuis Football Podcast. Here's your host, Josh Dupuis.
Hello and welcome to episode number 5 of the Josh Dupuis Football Podcast. I'm Josh Dupuis, and with me as usual is the man behind the glass, Justin Prince. What's going on, Justin?
It's going good. I'm a little bit sick, but it's a good day so far.
Well, let's get through this, and then you can go home and rest that throat of yours. And that voice that you just heard there is back by popular demand, Mr. Mike Huggall. Long time no see.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Had some catching up on some homework and some family stuff to do, but glad to be back and talking some football.
Yeah, glad to have you back. All right, you can reach us by emailing thejdfp@gmail.com, following us on Twitter at thejdfp, or searching for the Josh Dupuis Football Podcast on both iTunes and YouTube. Let's get to some news of the week.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. Cannonball!
Thank you very much. There is a lot of news going on this week in the NFL football world because, of course, we're going into conference championship week, but there is a lot of head coach news. To start off, the San Francisco 49ers with an internal candidate to replace Jim Harbaugh as their head coach, promoting defensive line coach Jim Tomsula as their head coach. What are your guys' thoughts on this move?
Well, Jim Tomsula, he has been there. I mean, he was the interim head coach for 1 year, or for one game rather, when Mike Singletary was fired. So I think he has some good experience, and he was a defensive line coach for a San Francisco 49ers team that, let's face it, they weren't the 49ers of old, but their defense still ranked in the top 5 in stopping the run and in quarterback sacks. So I like this move. I don't have an opinion whether it's going to pay off or not, but I do like it.
Yeah, I agree. It's not the biggest deal of a move. The biggest thing for them was getting Harbaugh out because there was internal meltdowns and everything that was happening. So they have a familiar face. They don't need to change up the complete scheme of their entire everything. They can kind of go with the flow. So I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a good move as well, to be honest, to stay with the same kind of system and go internally. But I know a lot of people are saying this was also a bad move at the same time because they wanted to see a fresh face in there, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I agree. I just don't know what the head coaching market's going to be like now. Mm-hmm. And since, I mean, I'm not going to take away from the other news, but there are some other moves this week that definitely took away from, the 49ers hiring a new fresh face.
Exactly.
Yes, there was a lot of different things. Starting off with across the bay, the Oakland Raiders, as they chose former Broncos defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio as their new head coach. Of course, Del Rio was the head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars a few years back. So what are you guys' thoughts on Jack Del Rio becoming the new head coach of the Oakland Raiders?
I think it all depends on the personnel that the Oakland Raiders can draft this year. Oakland is not a bad team. I like Latavius Murray to back up Darren McFadden. Jack Del Rio has Maurice Jones-Drew, although Jones-Drew is, deteriorating. His span in the NFL is coming to an end. But Jones-Drew knows the system, knows what Del Rio's going to do. He was a head coach for a Jacksonville Jaguars team who had never been to the playoffs. They won their first playoff game in 2007. This is a fresh face, and I think this could pay off.
Yeah, it's kind of a move back into the old mentality the Oakland Raiders had of like defense grinding it out and everything, bringing in a defensive coordinator, trying to improve their image, and it's better than what they had, that's for sure.
I really think it's going to be a lot more of the Al Davis just win, baby, just win. And, I think once you bring that element into it with Jack Del Rio, you're in for good things in Oakland.
Yes, I definitely have to agree. This is a good decision by the Oakland Raiders to name Jack Del Rio as their head coach. Now, off to Buffalo, New York, where the new head coach of the Buffalo Bills is Rex Ryan, of course, the former New York Jets head coach. And he wasn't afraid during this press conference on Sportsnet 360 yesterday that his intentions were clear. Rex Ryan had said this.
I know it's been, 15 years since the Bills made the playoffs. Well, get ready, man. We're going. We are going. And, the guarantee, hey, am I going to guarantee a Super Bowl and all that? I tell you what I will do. I will guarantee the pursuit of it.
So with this signing as well, the Bills and defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz agreed to part ways. So what are you guys' thoughts on, first of all, Rex Ryan saying this during the press conference?
I love Rex Ryan. I've said it all year, and I even said it last week, that I think he's the most underrated coach that got let go. He had that Jets team playing hard every single week, no matter how bad they were. Every single year, he had them playing hard for him every single week, and it can't be anything but good for a Buffalo defense. It's already really good to have him going in there.
I think you know what? I'm looking for a point to disagree with you on this, but I can't find one. Rex Ryan is a very good head coach.
Yeah.
Look at who he's had to deal with in New York. You had a washed up Michael Vick, a fresh young face in Mark Sanchez, who, they forget they went to the playoffs. They went to the AFC Championship game. I think right now, defensively, letting Jim Schwartz go in Buffalo was the right thing. Rex Ryan
different
is a very
schemes completely. 3-4 to 4-3 wide 9. It's two completely different things.
And Rex Ryan is a defensive guru. That's what his moniker has been. Going back to New York a little bit, the reason the Jets suck is because look at who's on defense. Nobody.
Yeah, they had a defensive line. That's about it.
I really, and they let Cromartie walk. DeRivas was gone.
Yeah.
D. Milner, who was supposed to be the next best thing out of Alabama, he tore his ACL, so he's been out. I think it's a good change for Rex Ryan. I think it's a good fit for the Buffalo Bills, and it's going to be a party up in Buffalo.
Yeah, I have to agree. This is a good signing for the new head coach position there for Buffalo. One thought I was planning on saying the last time we mentioned Rex Ryan was, if you put New York City and the New York Jets into a different city, he may be still the head coach for the New York Jets, because it's a big market, meaning there's a lot of pressure to win, and more eyeballs on them. And I know he could have also went to Atlanta as well. It just didn't go fast enough for him, I guess, is a lot of what I was hearing, because I know he could have been hired as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, too.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing that the Atlanta loses out on, having their biggest thing. We said this last week. You weren't here, but
no, I wasn't.
The Atlanta Falcons in Hard Knocks, if you watched it, they were talking about how they wanted to be known as tougher. They were known too weak the years past and everything. And there's no better way of getting your team tougher than having Rex Ryan as your head coach.
But I don't know if being in New York was his downfall, or if that's why he was let go. The Jets have been going through some serious changes, and I think they actually held on to Rex Ryan a little bit too long. There have been talks for the past 2 or 3 seasons of Rex Ryan, getting the boot. I think a lot of people are more so a New York Giant fan in New York. I mean, I'm not from the Big Apple. I'm not from Manhattan. I don't know what goes on there, but all I know is that the Giants do have a big fan base, and the Jets, people have jumped ship because of what that organization has done. So I see your point. I think it's a valid point. I'm gonna have to disagree though.
I think that Rex Ryan, he didn't really have much of a say in the personnel. He let the GM do it. He backed off of it. So I don't believe it was his fault for the team struggling so much. So to me, he was my favorite coaching candidate on the market.
Speaking of the Jets, of course, last week we had mentioned Todd Boyles, I should say, the former defensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals, and how he was interviewing with the Chicago Bears when they hired the new GM. Well, this week he was hired by the Jets as their new head coach. How do you guys feel about this move to replace Rex Ryan, who, of course, is, as we just discussed, in Buffalo?
Bad. That's how I describe it. That's the best way to describe it. Todd Bowles he's done some pretty good things with that Arizona defense, but it's a defense that has had some pretty good personnel on it. You look at Calais Campbell,
Patrick Peterson,
and Antonio Cromartie, Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah.
That team had all the pieces in place to be good, even without a good defensive coordinator. I think that New York should have gone a different route. I think Mike Smith would have been a good candidate in New York. He is a experienced head coach. Todd Bowles, I don't know whether or not he's ready to take on the role of a head coach,
especially
after 1 year of a good defense, after 1 year of
Yeah, before that he was just the DB coach for the Eagles.
And the Eagles. No offense to your Eagles, but they haven't had a good a good solid defense since, besides this year, since 2004. That's just it.
All right, so as well with the Dallas Cowboys now, Owner Jerry Jones explained last week that he wasn't ready to turn his attention to an extension with coach Jason Garrett. It appears that the time is now, as they have completed a 5-year deal with their head coach worth $30 million. How do you guys feel about Jason Garrett staying with the Dallas Cowboys?
I think that Jason Garrett just benefited off of such a high-powered offense with great weapons. I don't think he is exactly the mastermind great coach. I think Jerry Jones loves him because he's a coach that will just say, yes, sir, you take or draft who you want, this whatever you want, I'm here kind of thing. He doesn't want to get some big-name guy like Rex Ryan or something like that in there that will challenge him when he says, I want to draft this person.
I disagree. I like what Jason Garrett has done with that offense, the scheme, with that team in general. You bring in young guys, and I'm going to plug the city of Windsor, which we live, Tyrone Crawford, graduate from Catholic Central High School. He was in there. Jeremy Mincy was one of their sack leaders. Crawford played a big part on that defensive line. Bringing in, when this season started, when the preseason started, Sean Lee was out. That defense was ranked to be the 32nd best team or best defensive squad in the league. What did they do? They went to the playoffs. Something people said another 8-8 season for this team, another, a 6-10 season for the Dallas Cowboys. You're right, they had high-powered weapons in DeMarco Murray, Des Bryant, Tony Romo played extraordinarily well, but I have to attribute that to what Jason Garrett instilled in his team, the perseverance, and just the overall execution on both sides of the football. I think Jason Garrett really deserves this $30 million extension.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a huge contract. It's a pretty big contract, but it's nothing spectacular. It could just be my Cowboys hate coming out.
Absolutely.
Eagles fan,
That's right. Let's not talk Ravens, and I'll have the same view.
Okay, I also think this move is a good decision for the Dallas Cowboys, especially with the success this season. Of course, before this, they had gone 8-8, 8-8, 8-8, and finally, they just broke that pattern this season with kind of a breakout season, 12-4. Changing up from, passing the ball more to running the ball more, with DeMarco Murray.
Yeah.
It was a smash mouth style game, and I like what DeMarco Murray was able to do. He was healthy for the first time almost all season. He had a broken bone in his hand, but he played through it. And the backup, too, Joseph Randle. He is going to be something in the NFL, and it's not because, it's because of he's been able to learn from DeMarco Murray. You see, they're going to let him walk, I guarantee it, because DeMarco Murray is going to be that franchise player. He's going to have success somewhere else, Joseph Randle.
Okay, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, as now we'll go into out of the coach news to some more news. Of course, there was a lot of controversy over the past few weeks involving calling for reviews on play action calls. Well, New York Giants owner John Mara, who is on the NFL's competition committee, says he's been an opponent of using replay on pass interference calls in the past, but is starting to think differently. He has said, I know it's something we're going to discuss at the competition committee starting in February, and I'm looking forward to that because I think the time has come to not only have that discussion and that debate, but to really think about a change in that rule. The replay was implemented in order to try and correct the major calls in games, to get the big call right, and there are not too many calls that are bigger than a defensive pass interference. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Because I know in the past couple of weeks, people have been pushing, we need to see this, especially with the Dallas Cowboys Detroit Lions situation and then a few other games in the past few weeks, including the final weeks of the season.
I think that it can benefit the league, but at the same time, it can hurt the league. If you think about it from a standpoint of how much longer the games will be if every single play can be challenged, if there's more challenges every single game. If they can find a way to mix it in and get it to work smoothly, I'm all for it. Technically, I'm all for it even if it makes the games a little longer because I don't mind watching a little bit longer of a football game if they're going to get the calls right. It's time, though, with the technology that they have to move out and get the right call on the field instead of relying in the hands of the refs right then and there. Give them a second chance to look at it.
Money. That's all this league cares about. And that's fine. I'm a big football fan. I'm a big NFL fan. I understand that they're turning the highest profit of any professional sports league. I think it's like $7 billion a season. And my big thing with this is face guarding. I'm gonna go back to that play for just a second. Justin, hold your horses. I'm gonna rant for about 5 minutes, maybe less. That play, face guarding has been called all regular season. The defender doesn't turn their head to play the football, a flag gets thrown. All of a sudden, it happens in the playoffs. Oh, we're gonna let it slide.
Yeah, and they said too.
The ref said, "Yep,
face guarding isn't illegal in the NFL or something."
Well, you know what? And that's what bothers me, and that's what this comes to. Also, with replay, you want to talk about replay? The Dallas Cowboys. A lot of Lions fans are gonna say got their comeuppance, but that's a catch by Des Bryant. Come on. He went to the ground, he had the ball in his possession, and then popped it up to himself and caught it. The ball never hit the ground.
On that point, just the fact that they called it a catch on the field and they go to the replay booth, I can see if they called it incomplete on the field, and then they go to the replay booth and they're like, oh, we don't have conclusive evidence. Yeah. But there was no conclusive evidence to say he didn't catch that ball.
And you know what? It's just... replays now in football are all to turn a profit. So the league might pass this because they're going to be like, okay, well, how much time does this air for sponsors, for commercials? Yeah. Another funny Anheuser-Busch dog, or another, eat at Taco Bell, eat at Subway. It's great for the NFL that they're actually disputing adding more replay. So Commissioner Goodell's just sitting in his multi-million-dollar suit, eating out of his multi-million-dollar, silverware, eating his multi-million-dollar worth of Campbell's soup. I really think they need to kind of slow their roll, pump the brakes on, putting in more replay, and make sure you know the rules before you try and challenge the rules.
Mm-hmm. That was a very long rant, I'm going to say that, but all right. So
we got time. Keep going, Justin.
All right, so... you guys mentioned DeMarco Murray before and how you expect him to walk. I think it was Mike who said that. Well, according to Ian Rappaport, the Dallas Cowboys and Murray had a 4-year deal with slightly more than $16 million on the table, and Murray will likely test free agency if this deal isn't reopened. So you guys still stand on this, even if they have this $16 million for 4 years on this table?
I think that... first of all, I thought they were going to let Joseph Randle walk to free up some cap space for DeMarco Murray.
Pardon me.
No worries. I think DeMarco Murray just wants to see what the other offers are on the table. And this might not even be DeMarco Murray talking. This might be his agent talking, because, again, pro sports is all about the buck nowadays. And I think that he will likely test free agency. I think he's going to get some pretty good offers, but I think Dallas is definitely going to match it, especially knowing, Jason Garrett, $30 million. He could have asked for more, and I guarantee Jerry Jones would have gave him $50 million. But, $20 million in cap space now. They're going to let some players walk. That's going to free up some more space to sign guys like DeMarco Murray, to put a franchise tag on Des Bryant. I don't see Murray walking. I see Murray staying with Dallas.
I think the biggest thing for them is if they can get Des Bryant into a contract where they don't need to give him that franchise tag, they'll have a better chance at giving Murray a little bit more money. But if you think about it, $4 million a year for arguably one of the best running backs this year, he played himself into a better contract than $4 million. And if I played that well and you guys literally handed me the ball almost every single play pretty much this season, and then you come to me and say I'm only worth $4 million a year, I'd be a little pissed off.
No, I see, and a lot of it, if you want to make that argument, we're gonna put ourselves in these shoes now. If I'm the coaching staff, I say, well, the offensive line had one of the best years in all of football. But you're absolutely right. $4 million for breaking Emmitt Smith's single season rushing yards record for in Cowboys history. Yeah. That's worth a little bit more than $4 million in itself.
Yeah, he's a very talented running back. I think that if he makes it to free agency, if they do not sign him, some team is going to that doesn't have any big stars and he wants to bring people in is going to give him more money than he's worth. And I don't think Dallas will be able to match.
And if that is the case, I look for a market like the New York Giants.
Yes, there's a lot of different possibilities with Murray. I expect him to probably stay because if he leaves, that Cowboys team is going to be interesting to say the least once it's without Murray. the run game is going to start maybe fall apart, as we were talking about before.
Yep.
As well, one last note here, Oregon quarterback Marcus Mariota has announced he will forego his senior season and enter this year's draft. Of course, he was this year's Heisman winner. Of course, most people are going to say this was a good move because if you stay in college, you're going to lose value. So, what are you guys' thoughts on this decision here by Marcus Mariota, and where do you think he'll go?
It's all in the ultimate plan for Chip Kelly. They sucked for the duck. And I'm really, really, really hoping. All I've been hearing this week, I don't think it can actually happen, but all I've been hearing this week on Philadelphia Sports Talk is how Sal Palantonio from ESPN thinks that they're going to try trading through like next 3 first-round picks, and they're going to move up, and they're going to get this guy. I don't know. I'd be excited if it happened as an Eagles fan, but I can't really see them mortgaging the future for him. I think it's a good. He's not going to get much higher value if he stayed in college. It would have helped him a lot if he had won that last game, but he's still going to go in the top 5. I think we talked about this last week with Jameis Winston, him coming out. It's scary to think, though, if you stay in college and you get injured and you have a little bit worse of a season, all he can do is really drop, in my opinion.
I disagree. I'm a big supporter of having guys finish up degrees. Richard Sherman stayed for his senior year. Richard Sherman is the best cornerback in football. You know, he graduated, valedictorian of his class at Stanford. You know, this is my thing, is that college players, you know, they look for that dollar. Again, I talk about money in football. They look for that dollar to kind of, you know, well, if I sign with these guys, they're going to give me, $8 million to start as like a rookie salary. Well, $8 million or pay another $400,000 to take another, year of college. So that's definitely a big factor. Unless they're on full ride scholarship, then obviously that
majority
number,
of the big name guys are.
I don't think it's a good idea. And just to talk about your point, I don't think the Eagles are going to trade up. I've also read some things from Ian Rappaport, from Adam Schefter. The Bucs are not looking to give up that first overall pick, and they will likely take Marcus Mariota. I think Winston and Mariota's value have dropped significantly. I don't think, significantly being, 15 picks. I don't think Mariota's a number 1 overall pick. I really don't. I think
talent-wise, he might not be, but
he's the best quarterback in that draft.
There's only 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah,
really
he is
in
the
this
best
draft,
quarterback in
so
the draft.
that only helps them.
I just think that Tampa Bay should stick with Mike Glennon. I think they're going to grab Mariota first, but I don't think that he's going to pan out.
I've heard Lovie Smith actually likes Jameis Winston more too. That's another thing that they got thrown. I don't know if it's just
that's stupid.
Other
that's
people.
stupid. Jameis Winston is a lot like a Johnny Manziel, and we know how well Johnny Manziel played this year. But that's a different topic for a different time, and I'm going to stick with I don't think it's a good idea.
Okay, and I got kind of a little bit of breaking news coming from the NBC Sports Pro Football Talk coming in that the NFL is trying to set up its first veteran combine on March 22nd, and a league sent out memo, which is basically a scouting combine for veteran free agents. So this is kind of an interesting thing that just popped up as
I like that.
That's very nice.
And people like T.O. can go in and prove that they're still ripped out of their minds and still can do something.
I'm reading through this right now. It says players can apply with the league, and around 100 players will be chosen to appear in this camp at the Arizona Cardinals facility before the owners' meeting. So with this, how do you guys see this going on? I know this is coming in last minute here, but what do you...
I think it's good. If you really think about it, it's going to help the older players in the league that want to prove themselves that they can still hang with the young guys and all that. Oh, I can still run a pretty fast 40. All that stuff. The combine's not really as big of a deal as looking at actual game film and everything, even for rookies. But it does kind of let you see how the player's doing, how he's moving around, and it can only really benefit the veterans to me.
I think it's awesome. I think it's really cool. Like you said, we're going to see those guys that, are classified as washed up, don't have it anymore, prime's behind them. And you're right. You're going to see if they still have what it takes to, play professional football, play in the NFL. I think it's great. I think it's going to be I think it's very innovative, and I'm looking forward to it if it happens.
It's gonna help. It's gonna help people. Like I said, like Terrell Owens. The past 3 years, he's been trying to get. I think 2 or 3 years.
Well,
he's
Randy
been trying
Moss
to
wants
get
to
on
make
the
a comeback
team.
too.
Yeah, well, there you go. all these guys that
Sooner or
as
later,
soon as
Michael
a
Irvin's
receiver
gonna be
gets
playing.
hurt, they're tweeting out, "Hey guys, I'm here if you need me, ready to go," kind of thing. So well, it gives them away. But it goes back to your point last time. To me, this is the NFL wanting some money. they can put this on TV. They can do all that. But I like this idea.
Well, I mean, the NFL is money, but I like this idea too. I mean, Randy Moss wants to make a comeback. Maybe Barry Sanders will play all the snaps he never got to play.
Get some Dan Marino.
That's it. So we're gonna get an NFL Legends League 2016.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good idea as well. But that wraps up all the news for this week. Let's go into the good, bad, and the ugly.
All right, this week on the good, the bad, and the ugly, it's actually going to be changed to the good, the sad, and the ugly, and we'll start right off at that sad mark. Peyton Manning, it seemed he has that injury. It came out afterwards, but pretty much the last 6 games of the season, he just looked as though he did not have that arm strength anymore. He's that aging player, and it's sad to see a guy. He has nine times in his career he's been to the playoffs and won and out. He just loses that first game, and he's been compared to Tom Brady being the best and all that. But it just every time he gets to the playoffs, he can't seem to move on to the next round and move in. It's sad to me.
It is sad because everyone who is a Colts fan is now rooting for Peyton Manning, and they were definitely rooting for Peyton Manning in that game. I mean, they wanted the Colts to win, and they did. So they were happy. It was a win-win for them. But yeah, his arm strength's just not there. I had a feeling when the game started, the Colts were just going to dominate the way they ragdolled Cincinnati. So what can you say? He's going to be the Dan Marino of our generation. I think Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl. Never won a Super Bowl.
No Super Bowls. Great regular season stats. That's basically how it's been for him. He leads the league every year, pretty much in regular season. Playoffs come, and then something bad or he throws a bad pick, or it's a cold weather game and he can't throw as hard, and it's sad.
It is sad.
Yeah, it is really sad, to be honest. I know. For the past,
Justin's just crushed by this emotionally.
I know for the past few weeks it's also part of the sickness, but as well for the past few weeks, apparently, according to Jake Razor, on top of playing with injuries in both his quads, he had a partial tear in one quad and a deep bruise in the other. And I know, Josh, we had discussed before that you said he didn't have that power on the ball back in December, and kind of now we know why. And you mentioned bad things seem to happen. I guess this injury is one of those things, but how long do you guys see his career lasting going on now? Because he's 38, 39 years old now?
Yeah, he's getting up there. I can see him retiring this year. I can see him doing one more year because he doesn't want to go out on that. The quad injury, I can also see that having something to do with his arm strength being even worse, not being able to push off in his throws.
Yes, absolutely.
But even before that, he wasn't known as such a power thrower. So any injury will really affect that.
No, I think you're right. Then again, his accuracy was off in that game, and he wasn't in the right frame of mind.
Yeah, ground balls, and he was throwing some Donovan McNabb throws.
I really think that he'll play one more year just to see how it is. But, I mean, I think it's time because his contract's last year would be his last year in the contract?
I'm actually not sure.
It's we'll look that up.
I believe he went through for 5 years when he originally signed as well, and I know as well.
So he's got about 2 years. 2 years left in the contract. Regardless,
and I know that Elway said he wanted him back. He said all that.
It's time. I think it's time to pull the plug. A guy like Brett Favre never had any significant injuries in his career. That's why he was able to come back 2-3 times. Peyton Manning first with the neck, now with the quads. You have to be smart and make it so that your health comes first, not the desire of winning that second Super Bowl and being Eli. It's that's what I think.
I think that Elway making that statement that he wants Peyton back says a little bit about what he thinks about Brock Osweiler as his next starting quarterback. Because what did the Packers do when Brett Favre kept coming back and doing all? They're like, hey, no, we got this guy. We're gonna start him now. You can't keep coming back and going away. And they had Aaron Rodgers in the wait. They knew what they had. It doesn't sound like the Broncos really think they have that much.
That's kind of an interesting thing to mention as well. So, and plus, there's going to be a whole new head coaching squad and coaching squad in general because, of course, now Jack Del Rio is now the head coach in Oakland. The offensive coordinator is interviewing for a bunch of jobs right now. I think his name is John Gosh or whatever it is. I forget his name. And, of course, John Fox might be close to a deal in Chicago, but it's not done yet. So it could be an interesting season if Peyton comes back for one more season.
Yeah, that might be something he doesn't want to really deal with. Moving on, though, to the ugly. We have the playoff seeding and having to watch the Panthers play against Seattle because the way that the Panthers get a first-round home game because they win their division, they play against an Arizona Cardinals that obviously didn't have a quarterback to play against them. So they squeak through to the next round, but I don't even think the Panthers should have made the playoffs in the first place. And it makes it so ugly to me that we had in a divisional round, we had to watch Seattle go in and just clearly was way better than Carolina.
Why are you hating on the Panthers, man?
Well, what was their final 8-7-1?
Well, 7-8-1.
7-8-1. There you go.
Okay, but like, here's the thing: they played well against Arizona. I was surprised. I mean, even with the fact that Arizona was on their third string quarterback.
The guy that's never thrown 0 touchdowns.
Ryan Lindley and then Logan Thomas. But I honestly thought Carolina would go in and put up a game against Seattle, and for the first half they did. For the first half, Carolina put up a pretty.
They hung in with them a little bit, but then it was
a few bad breaks for the Panthers there. Obviously, the 90-yard pick six from Cam Newton. That really
that was huge.
That
was a weird throw. Did you see that he kind of put his entire body he wanted to just whip it and completely telegraphed where he was going with it.
But that was Newton. Even in the game against Arizona, he was dropping his back foot and the shoulders were all everywhere. But honestly, I think that game was better than people expected. A lot of people thought Seattle was just going to run away with it, but I think the spread was 12 points when it finished.
Yeah,
which isn't too bad. And I mean, you take away that pick six.
You'd hope it'd be a little bit close. I wish they could do something with. My point is just that, cool. Let the Panthers make the playoffs.
Yep.
Because they won their division, but reseed by record is my opinion. They should have been the 6th seed going in. Don't give them a home playoff game. All right. So now my good is even though we talked about the Panthers and how that game was ugly to watch in the divisional round, but to me there was 2 really good games with New England and Baltimore and Green Bay and Dallas playing each other. It was such 2 really exciting games to watch, to go down to the finish that just had so much excitement and intensity throughout the entire game. It was a lot of fun to watch, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I think that's definitely good. That Packers-Cowboys game was exciting to the bitter end, and the Baltimore-New England game was good. I'm gonna say my good is going to be just New England in general. I love Tom Brady for, I hate to admit it. I love Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I think he's
a lot of fun to watch. He is
very fun to watch. And he's very cerebral in the way he approaches the game. He's throwing touchdown passes. He's cool, calm, and collected on the sidelines. When he throws a touchdown pass, he's right up in their face,
He's all excited, screaming
screaming at him, that's I like the Pats as my good.
Yeah, and the other thing to think about it for a good too is what we have coming up this week. The 2 games that we get to watch with New England, Indianapolis, and Green Bay, Seattle. Those are pretty much the 4 best teams now that Denver had that little bit of a slide. But all right, let's move into our picks of the week. What do we have first, Justin?
First up is the AFC Championship game, the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots. The Patriots are the favorites, 7-point favorites over the Colts, as they are the hosts for this championship game. So what are your guys' picks and your thoughts on this game?
All right, Andrew Luck is 0-3 against Bill Belichick in his career. He's been blown out all 3 times. The Patriots played them this season and beat them 42-20, where I wrote down no-name brand running back Jonas Gray went wild for 201 yards and 4 touchdowns. With that being said, I've said this all year. Andrew Luck, he throws some bad interceptions every single game, and he had 2 this game where 3rd and longs, he drops back, goes to or has to roll out of the pocket and just heaves it downfield into the middle of the field just to be picked off. And I heard people say on NFL Network, oh, it's just like a punt. It's just, but you can get some extra yards. You can get your punter actually out there to pin him back further. You never want to throw a pick. I don't care if it's a 4th down and you're doing a Hail Mary, okay. But trying to stretch the field, he had time. It's not like he was being pressured. To me, I might just be being a little bit too picky on him, but every game he has these little moments where he's throwing these bad picks. So in my opinion, it's going to be Patriots, and I'm going to take the -7.
I just touching on Andrew Luck really briefly. I'm watching those games, and every time he drops back, I am nervous, and I'm like, what's he going to do? What's he going to do, right? And so yeah, you make a very good point. He has
these moments where it's just like, oh my God, it's so good. Like, wow, what a throw. But then there's the bad picks.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm going to take. Man, I really like Indy, but I'm going to take New England. I'm going to take -7. But watch maybe in the upset. You could take Indy plus a 3.5. I'll take that. But what's the next game, Justin?
Before we go to the next game, I also had to agree Patriots by 7 points or more with the -7. Lots of different things to go on with that game. I just see New England blowing out Indianapolis somehow, or Tom Brady lighting them up on the scoreboard. But the other game you were asking about is the NFC Championship.
There you go.
Green Bay Packers, Seattle Seahawks. My goodness, this game is going to be interesting. -7 favorites for the Seattle Seahawks. What are your guys' thoughts, as this is going to be an interesting game, that's for sure.
This line really surprised me. Going in, I thought maybe -4, -5, something like that for Seattle. But the -7, that's a full touchdown. Like, with such a high-powered offense in Green Bay, it surprised me a little bit. But saying that at the same time, I can see a little bit where they're coming from with Aaron Rodgers is all hobbled, and his mobility is sacrificing because of his calves. So he's not be able to move around in the pocket as easy. He's not able to do. He's still doing really well, throwing all these bombs. And I just think that Seattle's defense is way better than the Cowboys' defense. So they're gonna get pressure on him. They're gonna hit him. He's gonna feel his calf. But if not in the beginning of the game, by that 3rd quarter, he's gonna feel it. And that line. So like I said, that line's telling me. Originally, I thought this was just going to be a close game, but with that line, like I say all the time, the line's telling me something. I'm going Seattle -7.
I like the Seattle pick. I'm going to go Seattle -3.5. You're right. Aaron Rodgers is hobbled by that calf, and Seattle's deep pass rush is absolutely phenomenal. However, I think a knock on Seattle's defense right now has been not their inability to stop the run, but their inconsistency. And Eddie Lacy is going to play a big part in this football game. Marshawn Lynch Jr. Yeah, you can say that. I'm going to take Seattle with the win. Sherman's getting a pick. Earl Thomas is getting a pick. This game is going to be gritty to the bitter end, and this is going to be old school football. I'm going to love every minute of it.
This is definitely going to be a defensive matchup on my pick here, because I know Seattle's going to win this game. But I already know it's not going to be a 7-point victory for Seattle. It's going to be one of the most defensive games you'll probably see this season, with the Legion of Boom versus the Packers defense with A.J. Hawk, Corey Matthews, everyone like that. It's going to be, like you said, Mike, a fun game to watch when it comes up this weekend. So that wraps up the 2 games for this weekend. I'll toss it over to you, Josh.
All right, as always, you can reach us by emailing thejdfp@gmail.com, following us on Twitter @thejdfp, or searching for the Josh Dupuis Football Podcast on both iTunes and YouTube. For Mike and Justin, I'm Josh Dupuis. Thanks for listening.